that who's the authority is always the man, but I think who is in power is the person who has the best knowledge and wisdom in whatever area we're attacking.
Man, we got a great guest on today. Great guest on, Winfred Burns II, man, pastor, author, relationship coach, also co-host of the Scoop Show with his other co-host Q Willis. Shout out to her. And their socials, the Real Scoop Show. Make sure you guys follow them there. Welcome, sir. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, gentlemen.
Yeah, we met this guy, this great person, great man, at the Shatoria event up in San Antonio, Texas. Man, I'll never forget, man. The first day, man, we were walking over to breakfast, me and Jay, and I looked at him, he looked at me, and I was like, "Hey, how you doing?" We just kind of kicked it off and talked, man, and lo and behold, he was Shatoria's good friend and mentor, man, and he's kind of been a mentor for us, man. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's mine. Pleasure's all
Yeah.
mine.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead and get started here with the first topic here to speak on. So decision making in relationships, we've been kind of speaking on ego and kind of the power struggle in relationships, right? So, the first topic is, how do you balance decision making in relationships?
So I think in a healthy relationship, the way you balance decision making is, so I look at it like this. I look at it as um, we are in a marriage. Marriage is a partnership. I believe that the person who you are married to, I'll use the biblical terminology, is it should be a suitable helper.
Okay.
And by suitable helper, that means that this person complements you. So where I'm weak, you're strong. Where I'm lacking, you have some, have some you can cover me. And vice versa. So I think, but I believe that that's how it should be. But I also believe that whatever the decision is, that as the husband, as the man in the relationship, you are the authority. And by authority, what I mean is you are the person who has to stand in front and say, okay, whatever happens with this decision, I'm owning it. I'm owning responsibility for said decision. So whether I'm, so I think that's the order. In terms of power, though, so if I want to be clear, I've used there's a difference between authority and power.
Okay.
So I think that who's the authority is always the man, but I think who is in power is the person who has the best knowledge and wisdom in whatever area we're attacking. So if I am the better financial person when it comes to making financial decisions, then I'm the lead. And as the lead, as a good leader, I still listen to my partner. I still ask questions of my partner. I still say, hey, this is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm thinking we should do. Do you see anything? Am I missing anything? You don't see anything? Okay. Yeah, this is the direction I think we should go. And then, like, once they're on board, let's go. So I think whoever has that is the person who should lead in a certain area. If my, I'm not married, but if my wife is the better, the better one when it comes to children, hey, I'm about to make said decision, and she's like, no, I think you're missing this. Like, okay, well, you go ahead and handle that because I know. So I think that's where the suitable helper comes in, is I understand your strengths, you understand my weaknesses. We're okay there. There is no power struggle in that sense. Now, if we disagree, here's where the problem comes in. The problem is what happens when we disagree. And I think when we disagree, we've got to have a process in our relationship that we go through, we deal with the disagreement in, so that we take both what we need, we sit down and talk through all of the different possibilities, and then we say, okay, you know, and then we come to some kind of solution, or we slow down until we can. And I think that's what a lot of couples, with the step that a lot of couples miss, is we're in such a hurry to make a decision, we don't slow down. We don't say, okay, we're not on the same page, or one of us is not willing to let the other person, trust the other person's decision on this one. Let's slow down. Let's come back to this when we can. And so I think that's one of the things that we should do if there's a disagreement, is just slow down. Like, let's just slow down. We don't have to make this decision right now. We don't have to, choose right now. Let's come back when we're ready to make this decision together.
So I'll speak on that. I completely agree, right? But I will add to that, because I think that foundation that you just spoke on, and let's start with kind of the nurturing, kind of the decision making, who's better in that area, right? And I'll kind of speak on it as far as me struggling with this issue, right? Because I feel like sometimes you're saying who makes the better financial decisions, who makes the better, like, we even call it mental decisions, who is going to take accountability for those decisions. And I feel like sometimes we as men, we take that into the fact that we need to be all those things, right? So if we make a failed decision, right, we take on that failed decision, we fix that failed decision, but then in consequence, it's like our partner, if they're not good in that bad decision making, as men, we take on that responsibility and that accountability, right? Because I know for me, I took on a lot of that, right? To where I got to protect, I got to serve, I got to fix, I got to, and we've kind of spoken on this before, right? And I feel like that comes with the male ego also. And we've kind of spoke on this, to the fact that I feel like sometimes when you take on a lot of that responsibility as a man, and we'll speak on it in a few minutes, I feel like it damages our mental headspace too, right? It puts a lot of pressure on us as men.
Okay, absolutely.
I will agree and disagree with that. Like,
okay,
well, I'll say it's ego, yes, but I also feel like that's part of being a leader. Like, as part of being a leader is being able to, like, yo, this is my team, or this is my person, this is my partner, however you want to. It's like, all right, as the person who has, I mean, Winfred spoke about power versus authority. As somebody who has authority in this place, in this situation, what you do also reflects on me. Like, and so
right, yeah.
it is part of my, like, so long as you do fall within my authority, so to speak, I hold some responsibility. Now, I like, there's a difference between healthy authority, which is where I think it can be a good thing, and letting your ego take full control of the situation, which is part of what you were saying, right? Because, like you said, yes, it reflects badly on you, but it can, if it reflects badly on you because you're like, oh, I didn't necessarily provide you what information I had or what support I could have or something like that, then it's like, okay, you're trying to be a good leader at that point. Whereas as opposed to when you let your ego take control of it, it's just like, oh, you're just making me look bad. It's just like, no, that's not the lesson you should be taking from it, so to speak.
So I think we also have to your point, Jay, is decipher between, and this is where for men where it can get different, it can get difficult. There's a difference between being confident in your decision making and be ego driven.
Yeah.
So as a man, I have to be, in order to be a healthy leader, I have to be confident. In order to make good decisions, I have to be confident. I have to be in a position emotionally, mentally, spiritually, psychologically, where I'm confident in who I am, so that as I'm making decisions, if I make a bad decision, then I'm able, number one, to take accountability. Two, and by accountability, I mean, hey, go to your partner. Listen, when I made this decision, I realized that I was wrong. Okay, and so let's work through it. Let's work through it. Let's fix it. I'm gonna do that, but it doesn't damage me to the point of, oh my God, what's wrong with me? And now this is where it gets into the point of where over time it begins to affect our mental health. The thing is this: as a man who is confident, you are going, when you make a mistake, you recognize that a mistake is just an opportunity to learn and to grow. As an ego-driven person, when you make a mistake, now it causes you to question who you are and to start thinking something is wrong with you. And like, you start to really beat yourself up, because the ego is about self and making myself good. Whereas a confident man is really here to say, you know what, I'm, with the information that I have, with the right intentions, with, again, that's why it's important also to, to talk, to have mentors, to have, Bible says multitude of counsel, there's safety, to have, a multitude of counsel, to talk to your partner. You have with all of the information I have, with all of the wisdom I have available to me, with understanding where we're trying to go in this relationship, this is the decision I think we should make. And so when we make a wrong decision, hey, we went the wrong way. And it's just like with your GPS. When you make a wrong way, what does your GPS does?
Reroute
you, reroutes you.
Reroutes you back. And you have, once you think of it like that, it's like, I just made a mistake. Okay, so instead of it taking me an hour to get here, it might take me an hour and 15 minutes. Man, that was stupid. Okay, let's get to what we got to get to. And that's like, I learned. I messed up. And then you get to meet other men and go, hey, don't do that. I did that. Don't do that.
Yeah.
That's confidence versus ego. So the ego is always going to lead us to trouble. But our confidence allows us to make healthy decisions. And then when we make bad decisions, with good intentions, to still respond well. And the cool part about that is, when you have a partner who cares about you, they might be like, that was a dumb decision, but they're gonna also look at you and be like, but I appreciate the fact that I have a man who is able to hold himself accountable for when he does something wrong. So now I don't have to worry about him continuing to just make bad decision after bad decision because he's ego driven. But he's going to be able to learn how to reverse course. He's going to be able to teach us. He's going to be able to lead our family well, because guess what? It's not going to be the last time he makes a mistake. And it's not going to be the last time we make a mistake.
So I will add to that, because I feel like that's one of the most difficult things to understand. Ego versus confidence, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like sometimes when making a decision, right, and when, like you said, if that decision fails, you're questioning who you are. I tell you right now, I've been through that. I went through that, right? And sometimes there are things where I feel like sometimes if you're really working hard at something and it fails, you do start to question, who you are. Was this the right thing to do? Mm-hmm. And you start to question, do you want to go further into another opportunity, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel like sometimes that's very hard for men to do. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it's easy or it's like, hey, just pick yourself up next day. No, I truly feel like sometimes it can be a difficult road, because so many things are being played in your mind, right? Yeah. And I just had this conversation with a good friend this week where it's like, I feel like a lot of men's mindset, there are things that we are stressed out over outside of our relationships, outside of our marriages, mm-hmm. to where we start to question ourselves as men, mm-hmm. right? Are we good enough? Mm-hmm. Is our partner really there for us based off of, failed relationships, based off of failed decisions, previously, right? And
Based
I
off
feel
trauma. That's
correct,
what it is.
correct. And I feel like this is a good conversation to the fact that it's a very difficult road to go down, right? But I do encourage it for men to go down that road to distinguish between building that confidence in decisions that, and we've said on the show before, building that confidence in decision making for yourself first before you jump into a relationship.
Yes.
Right. Building that confidence in preparing yourself for, because if you make a decision with yourself, you have no choice but to hold yourself accountable. Right. Instead of instead of
either way.
yeah, but I feel like that's one of the hardest lessons.
Yeah.
Right. To, and I understand why a lot of men are, if they're taking that route to say, hey, I'm going to be single for a little while and recalibrate and fix me for those reasons. And I understand that part. But the other part of it is, like, I feel like sometimes it's a very difficult road, right? And it's kind of really difficult when you add a relationship in it, when you add a marriage into it, and sometimes when you add kids into it, right? And you feel like you're failing at every corner. So my point to say is that, like you said, communicate with your partner, communicate with yourself, take a step back, and even understand that, you know what I mean, you can't do everything so fast, right?
Yeah.
And that's pretty much my point to that. Go ahead, Jay.
I mean, well, what you just said is accurate, but I also feel like you were saying that men need to, yes, you need to build that accountability for yourself. And I agree with that piece of it.
Okay.
But I feel like, and this is me personally, I kind of want to hear both of your opinions on this. I feel
Okay.
like there are a lot of men who lack the discipline to hold themselves accountable. Who lack the, I understand, it's an exercise, and you it's a muscle you have to build. But I think that a lot of men, like myself included, because I've been there, it's easy to say something, but it's hard to hold yourself to it.
Correct. So let me ask you kind of a response question to that. Do you feel like that's your ego?
No, I don't think. Well, yes and no, because your ego is always going to play a part, right?
Okay.
Your ego is always going to play a part if you don't have the discipline to put it under control.
So what do you when you say you don't have the discipline, kind of what do you mean by that? Is because discipline can come in different forms. A discipline can be a choice, or discipline can be kind of a choice. You're either going to do it or you're not going to do it.
No, discipline is always going to be a choice, in my opinion, right? It's you choose to hold your, like, let's say I make a decision today. Well, no, let's go with a resolution that, well, I don't want to call it a resolution, a decision I made earlier this year where it's like, all right, I'm going to try and exercise 3 times a week. Let's just start there.
Okay.
If I build beyond 3 times a week, cool, but I'm going to exercise 3 times a week. Ultimately, I said that out loud. It is still up to me to, it's 8:30 at night. I've had a long day at work. It's still ultimately up to me to pick my behind up, walk to the weights, and start lifting something. It's a choice that I have to make, and it's an action that I have to take. But when it's something concrete like that, then it's easier, so to speak. But if it's something like, okay, I'm going to be more mindful of the things I say, or I'm going to be more mindful of how I treat other people, or you guys who are in relationships, I'm going to try to take my partner's feelings into account when I make a decision. Like things like that, it's a little more difficult because it's not as tangible. yes, you see the other person, but that's ultimately a mental and emotional thing that you have to choose regularly, meaning you have to be mindful of it.
So I will add to that, right? And I think you said some good things that made me kind of remind myself to the fact that you said, I don't think there is a difference between you saying that, you want to work out 3 times a week, right? Versus you saying, hey, I'm going to be aware of some of the things I say. Hey, I'm going to be aware of the way I treat people, right? The same way you can put that, let's just be real, the power of the tongue, the power of what you're saying, the power of changing behavioral patterns, right? If you're saying, hey, I want to work out 3 times a week, and we've spoken before on it, like there's 7 days in a week. If you know you want to work out Monday, Wednesday, Friday, today is Wednesday, you're like, man, I know I got to work out. I'll work out Thursday, instead of Friday, I'll work out Saturday, right? There's always a way, I think, in your mindset to what you want to do. It's just a matter of the pattern that you take, the road that you take. So if you're saying that, I feel like the more you say it's difficult for me to do it, and because I did it myself, right? It's difficult for me to do it. It's hard for me to do it. That mindset follows me, right? Those words follow me. They follow my everyday behaviors. You know what I'm saying? And like if you look at somebody, or you feel like you want to speak to somebody differently than what you're doing, the first thing that's going to come to your mindset is difficult for me to do it, so I can't do it.
I think so. Let me
oh, go ahead, Winfred.
Go ahead.
I think so. To the discipline portion, I think what you're both saying is, I understand what you're saying, Jay. I think the difference is the reasons. Either way, whether it's something like working out or something mental, the end result, the change that is supposed to happen, that does not happen if the discipline is not put into place. So it's whether no one knows about it, because when you decided to do this thing, to be more mindful of your partner when you make decisions, you did it for a reason. And the reason was either, something, your partner told you that they didn't feel like it, or, so for them to continue to be like, I don't think you think about me, you're like, oh shoot, I must not have been doing that discipline. I didn't do that well. So that's the either way, when it's something physical like working out, when you recognize I haven't lost any weight, or I haven't seen any changes in my my body, that's where they're the same. I think the difference is when we say we're going to work out, because there is a tangible thing that's attached to it, it's more difficult to hide. Because if everybody knows I've said I'm going to work out 3 times a week, then now all of a sudden there are more people who can hold me accountable. Whereas in my relationship, it's just me and my partner. And so now, and the people who she done told, and the people, what I mean? Like, it's a smaller group of people, so I can hide a little better. Either way, though, to both of your point, the personal accountability has to be there. And the only way you get to a point of full personal accountability is either one of two ways. Either you are forced to change because your health makes you change, or something like that, or you finally get sick. So you're sick of where you are. You're so sick of where you are, and you recognize that it's keeping you from something that you really want. So it's either you're forced to it, or you recognize it's keeping you from something you want. One of those two reasons happen, and you say, you know what? I have I cannot any longer give myself an excuse. I have to do this. And so as a result of it, I am going to fully hold myself accountable for it. And when we start to learn as men, to your point, I do agree, Jay, a lot of men struggle with that. And so I used to struggle with. So I started saying that nothing in my life happens that is not a result of a decision that I make.
Yeah. I feel like I struggle with it too.
Yeah.
Nothing, and literally, and that's hard sometimes, because some stuff, like there are other, like I say, there are other people whose what they do can have can influence it. But ultimately, the state that I am of my health, in my wealth, in my relationships is a result of the decisions that I have made. And so that forces me to say, I gotta make better decisions.
Yeah, there we go.
To use wisdom in my decision making. I have to, and this is where we were started a few minutes ago. I have to, and this is where we don't. So if we've learned to hold ourselves accountable, the next thing is we have to put an internal and an external system in place that allows us to run our decisions through this system to help us come to a solid solution. So what do I mean? So a lot of times when I make a decision, when I'm about to do something that's very questionable, I ask myself a couple of questions. This is my system. My system is what am I about to do? Is this going to make God angry? If the answer is yes, I don't know. I know I don't need to do it.
Yeah, got you.
Okay, no, this isn't going to make God angry. Okay, it's what I'm about to do go against who I say I am as a man. No, it doesn't. Is what I'm about to do going to bring shame or embarrassment to my family? No, it's not. How is what I'm about to do going to potentially affect my money? Now, I go through all of those four, and if all four of those are in alignment, okay, now I can move forward. But if they're not, I don't need to do that.
I think also, I like that.
Every man has to come up with his own system.
I also look at it where those are good points, but I also look at it if I'm struggling with the decision making or confidence, I think mechanism for me is that I articulate and understand what I have going on at this present moment. Right. Let's just keep it real. I was able to wake up this morning, you know what I mean? Look at it like, man, like you just feel a certain type of joy, you feel a certain type of relief. You feel a certain type, yes, you're the man, but I just feel like there's no pressure, right? And it almost gives you the confidence and knowing that your partner that you're laying next to or even sitting by can, whenever you want to make a certain decision or you know that you're getting what you need in return, right? It's being supported, you're being heard, you're being encouraged. And I feel like sometimes we as men, sometimes when we have partners like that and we're not used to that, we start to go into, it becomes difficult, right? Because we're not, it's an adjustment. It starts to become an adjustment to where you adjust yourself to prepare yourself for the triggers and not necessarily what you have in front of you. Yes. Right. Yeah. And to answer your point, Jay and Winfred, I feel like sometimes a lot of us men should really understand what you have in front of you. If it's positive, if it's you can honestly look beside you today and say, hey, she's supportive or he's supportive. We can listen to each other. We can talk to each other. We're there for each other. Positive reinforcement. And you can honestly say with confidence on some of the decision making that, this doesn't compromise who I am and where I would like to take us. Then I feel like sometimes, you're on the right course. You're on the right front.
Yeah. And sometimes you got to just say, like, if you're about to make a decision. So one of the beautiful parts about what you just said is if you're about to make a decision and you have that in place, you can say, hey, I'm about to make this decision. I don't know if it's right, but I think it's right. And I'm going to take this chance. You good with that? And I think just even that level of accountability, that's accountability right there.
Yeah.
That level of partnership where you're like, I think this is it. I'm not sure, but I think so. So let's try it. And if it's wrong, but so to have that allows you to do that. I think as men, one of the things that we struggle with is we struggle with the idea that we're going to fail this person.
Good point.
I'm gonna fail. I'm gonna fail in this relationship, and so I'm afraid to take chances and opportunity. There's certain risks I don't know if I can take. And to your point, whether it's because I took a risk in the past and I've got some trauma from it, or I just haven't developed. I haven't developed the I don't know the word, the whatever in me as a man to say that it's okay, whether I'm afraid it's gonna bruise whatever it is. But a lot of times we're unwilling to take certain risks as men because we feel like, either we're not gonna be able to recover from it or whatever. But I think we have to recognize that sometimes you're gonna mess up. You're gonna do something wrong, and your partner who is there for you, if they're the type of person who's got your back, who encourages you, it's gonna be like, hey, okay, I appreciate the effort. Because trust me, there are some things that they want to do that they don't have they're guessing on too. And at some point they're going to want you to trust them. So in that moment, it's like, okay, this is what partnership is. That's the beauty of partnership, actually.
Yeah. So let me ask you a follow-up question to that. Do you feel like we as men and even women don't take risks is because of the person they're with?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes some of us, we don't take risks. Again, it depends on the person. There are some people who take too many risks. So stuff like, hey, I need you to be structured about this. So it really depends on the person.
Okay.
Like, that's why I said either you still just need to have the conversation. Okay. Because if you're the type of person who takes too many risks, your partner can tell you that, hey, I know you like to take risks, because usually when you have somebody like that, the person who you're with is super stable, and that stability in them is God's blessing for your life.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
And they like, let's keep us grounded. Like, that balance is the beauty.
I know that works for me. Yep.
Yeah, that's the beauty. Like, they'd be like, hold on, not yet.
Yeah. Yep.
It's like, all right, go ahead and do what you got to do. I got this. Or before they'll tell you, before you do that, do these things right here.
Yep.
Before you go ahead and quit that job and start that business, save up about $5,000 because we're gonna need that for months.
Or on both ends. I don't think it's just I'm not, and I feel like that's the beauty of it. You ground each other.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
They push them and help them make this take some risks. They help ground you, and vice versa.
So I have a follow-up for you guys as well. So we've spoken about decision making, we've spoken about trust, we've spoken about a number of things, but why, like, all of them play parts to sort of the power dynamics in a relationship. But what do you think is the biggest factor as to why so many men these days seem to be going through power struggles in their relationships? Because y'all are both in successful relationships currently. So what are you seeing from the inside looking out, so to speak?
I think part of it, and I mentioned this a couple of minutes ago, I think part of it is trauma. I think part of it is environment. I think part of it is also, and we've spoken on the show about lack of direction. And I want to add a caveat to that. I feel like sometimes, because there have been times where I don't know where I'm going, right? But you said that you've got to be able to go somewhere to know where you're going first, right? So I truly think that there's a, and I'll equate it to me. I feel like when I want to make a decision, right, there's this ego versus confidence in my mindset to where it's like, I don't have to ask my partner what I'm doing. I'm a grown man. And I feel like a lot of that's ego, right? And I feel like it's almost like the 18-year-old in me. It's almost like I'm an adult. You know what I mean? I can do what I want to do, right? Because I'm who I am, right? And then the other part of it is that I feel like sometimes I get that way. Sometimes it's like, yo, I'm stable. I make good money. I can go and do what I want to do, right? And I feel like that's also ego, right? So I feel like sometimes there could be a power struggle because it's almost like when you want to make a decision on something and you have to conform to your partner on it, sometimes, depending on the decision, it's almost like I'm considering your feelings towards this decision, but it's almost like no matter what you say, I feel like you shouldn't tell me no because of the ego part of it, right? Now, the confidence part about it is like I'm confident in the decision that I feel like I'm gonna make. And a lot of men feel like sometimes when they have to confess their decision to their partner, it's almost like confirmation to where it's like, I gotta prove to you why this decision is valid, is good enough. I gotta prove it's almost going into a business meeting, right? To
Pitch your idea.
you're pitching your idea. And a lot of men view it as pitching your idea. You want to know why? Is because their partner doesn't trust them with the decision making, right?
Sometimes.
Well, yeah, sometimes, but it's almost like you're pitching it to yourself, right? And for me, it's like the 18-year-old in me sometimes comes out, right? To where it's like, man, and we'll talk about emasculation in a second, where it's like, I'm the man, right? I could take us anywhere. That's the I could take us anywhere we need to go. It's almost like everything I touch is gold, right? But having the partner that I have that can sit me down and say, okay, let me, we're in an interview right now. Pitch me your decision, right? And tell me why what you're touching right here is gold. You know, and I know I'm kind of getting off topic, but it's almost like I think most men are afraid to have those conversations with their partner, the right partner, knowing that they're trying to support them. And we've spoken on the show. I feel like our partners sometimes, I know for me, is a little bit more detailed, is a little bit more asking questions that I don't have in my mind already, and kind of 3, 4, 5 steps ahead of me. But the 18-year-old in me is like, I don't need to know. I don't need to answer those questions.
Let me jump in real quick.
Go ahead.
I totally agree with you.
Okay.
I want to challenge when you think like that, you are other man, because again, been there, I'm there with you. Here's the question I asked myself, because I'm gonna tell it myself real quick. So my thing is I'll go shopping for myself.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
with you, I make plenty money. I'm good. I handle all I'm fine.
Yeah.
But when I go shopping, I feel guilty, and I will hide what I bought.
I do that too. I do that too.
And I'm going to myself, why are you doing, like, what the worst she gonna say is, oh, you got some more clothes? Like, that's we were having the conversation. I was like, I feel guilty. And so, but the question you have to ask yourself is, why does this feel that way to you? Because and then to the part about your first question about, or your first part, the second, when it comes to like the pitching it, what if I reframe this as, I'm not pitching my idea for her approval, but I'm pitching her my idea so she can make it better. Because a lot of times, to your point, we give 30,000 foot, we have the 30,000 foot dream and idea, but there's some pieces that she might have that might make it that might bring the execution easier, better, faster, that we haven't thought through. But our assumption is she gonna shoot it down, and sometimes she might. Sometimes she might, but it's like, but if she does, and if we get in the habit of doing that, then that's when we could say, listen, when I bring you my idea, I don't need you to shoot them all down. What I need you to help me flesh it out. because if that's my personality, if I'm a dreamer, if I'm the person that likes to try, then you got to do that. So my co-host on the show, Q is when I'm the dreamer. So I'm like, I told her, I was like, we're gonna do a conference and we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. And the first time I did that, she was like, all right, let's try it. And it was bust. The second time I brought it to her, she was like, so what she did in a smooth way, she was like, so how are we going to do this? And what's your plan for this? And what's the plan to do this? And as she started asking those questions and I started answering, I was like, we're not ready for a conference. She was like, oh, we're not. She was like, I just needed you to see it. But the questions helped me. And then there's sometimes when she'll do that and I'm like, and I'll answer the questions and I'm like, I know this is okay. So we can't do that, but we need to do this because my ultimate goal is we got to get our exposure. Okay. So you're trying to get more exposure. The conference ain't it. Let's think about some other things we can actually manage. And so then we'll have conversations about that. And I'm like, okay, now I feel good about this. She's on board with it, and we can execute better. So it's not so much just about saying no or I'm wrong or bad, because the thing is, whatever it is that you're dreaming, there's something behind it that you're trying to do. And that's a good thing, but maybe it's execution that's off, or maybe there's a detail that you're not thinking of that if you think about that detail. So she ain't trying to shoot it down. Maybe she's just trying to make it.
Good point.
Think about it that way. Now I'm not pitching my idea. What I'm doing is I'm having a meeting with my team so that my CFO or my CMO or my COO can now look at this and figure out how can we grow our company.
Yeah. And now I have that mindset. Now I feel like, but I struggle with that.
Sure you did. Listen, I do too. But that's what,
and I can imagine how many other men
the other day and walked in this house and was like, let me get it out though. I hope she don't come look.
but see, I've learned, because I actually did that too. See, I've learned to where I'm just like, you know what? Whatever I buy, I just buy it for her too, and I ain't gotta.
I can buy my own stuff. I'm grown.
Yeah. And it's like, go ahead, Jay.
So, a lot of what I'm hearing, and you've already sort of stated this explicitly, but a lot of what I'm hearing is that most of the power struggles that we have in our relationships are a result of our lack of a self-assessment system, or a lack of a check-in, so to speak.
I think a lot of it's fear. I'm afraid. I'm afraid of the response.
That too.
Yeah, I'm afraid.
This is from the man side we're talking about. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of it is a fear of response. And I'll even put maybe a fear of maybe your partner resenting you, maybe feeling like you weren't thinking about them in that situation. And I often think that way. Like if I go out and buy me something nice, right? I feel like if I don't bring something home, flowers, candy, something, to say, hey, I was thinking about you, I feel like maybe that's my personal insecurity, right? Where it's like, if I go out, like you said, if you go out and shop for something and you got to hide it, maybe that's a little bit of insecurity, in my opinion, to feel like maybe she may feel I wasn't thinking about her, and so maybe a lot of men are feeling that way.
Yeah, I don't think mine is that. I think mine is just it's not so much I wasn't thinking about her. For me, it's not that I wasn't thinking about her, because I have no problem buying stuff for her either. It's what it really is I feel guilty because in my mind, the financial advisor in me goes, I could have invested this.
Okay. Yeah.
But I have plenty of shoes. I don't need another shirt. I just bought 3 shirts.
But these are limited edition, my guy. You got it.
As a pastor, I'm like, but I'm on camera all the time. I can't be wearing the same shirts all the time. And she'd be looking at him like, you doing too much, sir. So that's for me why.
Okay.
But I think again, that's why I say you have to ask yourself the question, why is this bothering me? And get to not just that root, but there's a deeper root in me that struggles with that too. So it's why is that in there? Examine that root. And then to your point earlier, Jay, find out what the trauma was and heal the trauma.
Okay.
Because all of this comes back. This power struggle for both on the male side and the female side is a trauma. It's a trauma response. It's a need, a deep-seated need that is in us that has not been addressed, that has not been healed. And so instead of healing it, what we do is we come up with this dysfunctional, because we are not functioning properly. So we have a dysfunctional system that is set up inside of us that causes us to respond in a negative way.
Yeah. So one quick question, Jay, and I'll edit this out. Because I think we spoke about power struggle and ego kind of before. Do you want to just skip to the next question?
I was gonna ask another question
go ahead.
that would put us in the that would take the conversation to
the emasculate.
Somewhat. It depends on how it goes, but I do have a follow-up question.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So to follow up on the conversation we're having regarding like trauma and everything like that, again, like this all sort of started with a conversation about ego and what role it plays.
Okay.
So would you guys say, and this is me as the esoteric interest in how the mind works and everything like that, do you both believe that our ego is a direct response to our trauma? Do you think that's what it is? And the second part of that question is whether you agree or disagree. Do you think that the ego is sort of the root of all evil, so to speak? You know, I can't really articulate it the way I want to, but we'll go with that. Do you think that the ego is just a trauma response, like a collection of trauma responses? And do you think that's the root cause of all our woes, including power struggles with relationships, bad decision making, all of that sort of stuff?
Would you like to go first?
Go ahead.
So the first question was, do I think that ego is responsible for our trauma response?
No, sorry, the other way around. Do you think that the ego is formed out of a collection of trauma responses? Right.
Yes. I think it is that, and it is also the response of how we internalize what culture says masculinity is. So it is the outbeing of so I think it's the trauma is part of trauma response, or our ego, because a part of the trauma response is to protect. So we want to protect ourselves, protect our identity, how people see us. But it's also then a collection of, okay, so men don't cry. So my ego doesn't allow me to cry too, because I need to project what culture says masculinity really is. So I think it's both. I think it's a collection. To your first question.
Okay.
I think you hit it the nail on the head. I do think, to add to that, I do think ego does play a part, because I feel like there's a certain search within society and culture to figure out what masculinity should be, right? And when we as men are searching for something, we sometimes can search in the wrong places, and we're getting the wrong results and the wrong knowledge and the wrong answers, right, on what healthy masculinity should be. And a lot of it is subjective, right? So I think a lot of times we can develop a lot of misinformation and try to apply that to masculinity, how we should be portrayed or be as a man, right? Instead of really understanding and being who you want to be, who you can be, right? And also observing a lot of behaviors that you've dealt with before versus what you're doing right now. Kind of differentiating yourself between, all right, I've tried this 3 times and it hasn't worked, right? So I'm going to try this one different thing, right? That has worked and it's proven to have worked. Why? Because I've added it towards my life and it's worked. It's given me a different result, right? So I think, to answer your question, I do think ego does play a part in power struggle in relationships, because who you choose in a partner, if you're choosing the same partner over and over and over again, right? I think a lot of that is kind of confessing to the fact that you haven't learned from your ego. But if you're choosing that one partner that you need, you know what I mean? It does play a part as far as like healthy masculinity, and it can kind of resolve a lot of the power struggle issues with their relationships.
Oh, you just had a lot there. So, so insert rabbit hole. Let me say this. I think
Okay.
Yes.
I think you're correct. I think you're absolutely correct. I think here's the problem, though. The problem,
Okay.
the difficult part, not the problem. The difficult part is most of us don't recognize that we have the partner that we need. Most of us,
Yeah.
because the partner that we need is the partner that often challenges us. And
Yeah.
so, and because if we don't have a good, healthy sense of worth that forms into a dysfunctional ego, then what happens is now, as my partner is trying to do the thing that she is supposed to do to help me, I'm fighting her because it comes across as a challenge when in fact she's not challenging, she's trying to sharpen me. And so it takes us this period of time to figure out, now all of a sudden, oh, she ain't the woman I want because she always got something. She got she just won't. No, what she's doing her job, which is to say, hey, this is what you about to run into this brick wall. And you like, no, woman, sit down and be quiet and do what I say. And because when it's ego, it continues to get puffed up and puffed up and puffed up. And you're like, well, you know what? Nah, I just need all women just to know your role and be quiet. And it turns into that foolishness instead of recognizing, because this is why, again, why it's so important to know the difference between ego and confidence. Because an egotistical man can never be humble. But a confident man understands that if I practice humility with the woman that I love in this relationship, it doesn't change who I am as a leader. It doesn't change who I am as a man in a negative way. It actually is going to make me better, because she can follow me because she knows I'm listening. She can follow me because she knows my heart is driven not by my ego, but by the desire to have a healthy relationship. So this is, to your point, you're absolutely right, but we don't see that often because we're so busy just trying to make sure our point get across and you recognize.
And I will add to that. I think you made a good point. I think we confuse attraction for challenge. Right? I feel like a lot of men are going after, it made me feel like I think a lot of men are going after such the most attractive woman because they feel like externally it challenges them. Externally, it like they feel like this woman wouldn't date me other than for what I bring to the table. So that's a challenge for some men, right? Whether they make a lot of money, whether they're stable, whether they're whatever it may be materialistically, and they get an attractive woman's attention in that way, and they correlate that with challenge. This woman wouldn't talk to me if I didn't have this. That's a challenge to continue to keep up with the things that he has. Right?
Life.
Yeah.
I agree, but I also I don't disagree at all. But I just want to highlight what you're saying, because it's like lot of the conversation we are saying is about like self-regulation and checking in and making sure that this is the right thing. And I think, yes, a lot of men do that, and it's the wrong challenge that they're looking for, right? Like,
good point.
There are plenty of, and again, this is not, I highly doubt this is any of us saying that, oh, an attractive woman shouldn't, finding an attractive woman is a negative. Like, that's not what we're saying. But
yeah,
I think
attractive.
I think
exactly. Yeah.
I think the danger comes in. I think the danger comes in when that is the only challenge that we seek. It's like, all right, your level of attraction is the sole barometer by which I am measuring our your suitability.
That's dangerous.
Yeah,
it's extremely dangerous, right? Because, like Winfred, like you're saying, it's like the challenge is part of what pulls us towards somebody. I think this goes back to the discipline conversation we had, because discipline is ultimately just you pushing yourself to do something that you view, whether that's correct or incorrect, as difficult.
Yeah.
And finding somebody who you believe is attractive is something that you believe is a challenge. But then there are other challenges, which I think as a consequence of the world we live in, going back to what you were saying, Winfred, with like how you were raised, the societal pressures, all of that sort of stuff, is part of what determines what we view as difficult. And ultimately, what we view as difficult is what we view as valuable, right?
Yeah,
we will push for what we believe is valuable, and we won't work as hard for the things we don't think are valuable, right? So, going back to the original point, like, oh, what you said, Phil. Oh, this woman is attractive, therefore it is going to be difficult. It's like, no, that's not where you should be. That's not where you should be placing your measurement. That's not where you should be focused. And that goes back to, you are lacking that system in place that helps you self-regulate. Like, okay, at surface value, yes, decision making. Okay, at first look, this is going to be difficult. This is going to be a challenge. And that fact appeals to me, so I'm going to move forward in this way. And then you have ignored all of the other you didn't do your assessments. You didn't, going back to what the questions that Winfred brought up. Is this going to make God angry? Yes or no? Okay. Is this going to bring shame to myself or my family? Yes or no? Okay. Is this a good financial decision? Like, these things often, our ego will tell us, okay, hey, our ego will sort of remove all of those assessments in place and just focus on self, like you said. And that becomes the problem. And that ultimately is, I think, where a lot of us end up failing. And a lot of relationships end up failing, because your ego will only stay in play for so long before you're finally like, okay, if I'm being honest, if I'm looking at all the evidence, this doesn't work, and here's why.
Man, appreciate you guys having me. Shout out to y'all, man. And I'm happy to be here, man.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here, man. You guys are doing amazing things.
Good, man. We doing good. I see you guys looking great.
Well, I appreciate y'all for having me out, taking y'all time, and promoting positive Black image.